they've also deserved for the airport to be international so they can come over and see family.
Lovely. Nice to have you on the program. And just finally, before you go, Benjamin, you hope one day to become a pilot. Is that right?
Yes. Want to work for Air New Zealand.
And to work for Air New Zealand. It's just go well. On behalf of all the team, we're all nodding. We're admiring your courage and your pluck, and go well, Benjamin. We hope to be in touch. That's Benjamin Patterson, Taieri High School student there. Isn't it just gives you faith in the future, that the kids are all right?
Absolutely, Scott. Kaha, keep going.
Yeah, you really like that. And I mean, the thing I come from with this is it's not about whether Dunedin deserves it or not. It's about whether it's going to be supported and be sustainable for the airlines. That's going to move the needle about whether it happens or not. And what he's trying to show is, you know what, this will be supported. So I like the way he's going about it.
Good on you. And you've been wonderful both here. Here's one here. I saw Prince Tuiteka perform in the Cafe Paris Hotel in Palmerston North. I still recall him, though I cannot remember exactly the year. He was a great performer. I do recall he wore a sequin blue suit offset by light tan boots. Thanks all. See you later.
Te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. And Heidi Akine, the bridge to one of the best summers ever. The Coromandel is pretty excited about State Highway 25A opening any day now. The backyard pool is a Kiwi summer sensation, but a shocking number are failing safety inspections. A council compliance manager joins us. Ever damaged your car on a rough road? We've got the details of a pothole payout one agency tried to keep on the down low. We journey further into the wonderful Northland world of artist Frendensrijk Vasa and the adventurous kitty cat that stowed away and crossed state lines. Spoiler alert, there is a happy ending.
RNZ News at 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, I'm Anna Thomas. A health professional says it's possible authorities have been taken by surprise by the fifth COVID wave sweeping the country. The surge comes as supplies of the antiviral drug Paxlovid run low. Kay Albert reports.
Pharmac and Te Whatu Ora are working to get more of the COVID antiviral drug into the country and are redistributing existing stock as demand runs high. Some pharmacies have completely run out, but almost 20,000 courses of the drug arrived yesterday. Work is underway to secure more supplies next year. Otago University's Professor Michael Baker says Paxlovid is critical for keeping people out of hospital and reducing deaths. He says with supplies limited, one approach will be to focus on those most at risk of COVID, such as the elderly with underlying health conditions.
The Prime Minister has thanked retiring Labour MP Kelvin Davis for his service to New Zealand. Mr Davis, who first entered Parliament in 2008, will quit effective from Waitangi Day, saying he didn't want to grow bitter on the opposition benches. He served as Minister of Corrections, Children, Māori Education, Māori Crown Relations and Tourism, as well as Labour's Deputy Leader. The Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, says Mr Davis should be proud of his career.
We may disagree politically on how to take the country forward, but I generally think people come to Parliament with good intentions. We may disagree on the means by which we deliver the outcomes, but his is a great parliamentary career and a great political career he should be incredibly proud of.
Kelvin Davis was defeated by Te Pāti Māori in Te Tai Tokoro in October, but stayed on as a list MP. A lawyer for women transferred from a Wellington prison because of short staffing says an illegal situation continues every day they're not returned. An August High Court decision found corrections discriminated by gender when it transferred female inmates from Arohata Prison to Auckland and Christchurch. A ruling today has told corrections to reconsider its decisions, saying short staffing isn't a good enough reason to break the law. But lawyer Amanda Hill says it's worrying there's no deadline for those decisions.
I am concerned that it will take too long, and we'll be continuing to watch that really closely and make sure those decisions are priority for corrections, because effectively an unlawful situation continues at Arohata until they do that work.
The judge has told corrections decisions should be deferred. A Palmerston North teenager who had to travel to London for treatment after he suffered a deep brain bleed says he's on the mend. Carson Harvey says his headaches have stopped and he's now looking forward to coming home next month after his second operation. The trip came after a massive fundraising effort towards the $150,000 cost. In June, the active 16-year-old was heading to the gym when he felt a sharp pain in his neck. It turned out he had a rare, deep brain bleed caused by tangled blood vessels, and the radiation surgery required was not possible in New Zealand. The Thames Coromandel Mayor is hoping the reopening of State Highway 25A is the kiss of life the Coromandel Peninsula desperately needs. Since January, the Lifeline Highway has been out of action, washed away in the summer storms. By Wednesday next week, cars will be able to drive along a new bridge from Kopu to Hikuai. Len Salt says reopening before Christmas is vital for businesses.
We know that over the last 12 months, it's cost our local business communities around $91 million at least. And that's just in credit card and FPOS transactions. We know that the number's actually more than that.
The project, run by the transport agency Wakakotahi, has finished 3 months ahead of schedule and $7 million under budget. And you can hear more about the story shortly on Checkpoint. To sport now, and the White Ferns have the upper hand in the second one-day cricket international against Pakistan in Christchurch. A short time ago, the tourists were 164 for 5 after 42 overs, after New Zealand skipper Sophie Devine won the toss and opted to bowl. Medium pacer Molly Penfold is the most successful of the New Zealand bowlers with 2 wickets. Meanwhile, in Perth, Australia are 445 for 6 in the first session of day 2 on the first test against the Pakistan men's side. Black Ferns Sevens captain Sarah Hirini has undergone surgery on the knee ligament injury she suffered at the Dubai Sevens earlier this month. With the Paris Olympics only 7 months away, it will be touch and go as to whether Hirini will recover in time for the Games. Sevens coach Corey Sweeney says Hirini's rehabilitation will begin in the new year and she'll then hopefully return. And tonight's NBL clash between the New Zealand Breakers and the Cairns Taipans will go ahead despite the threat of tropical cyclone Jasper. The Breakers are currently 9th overall in the 10-team competition, having won just 4 games, while the Taipans are 7th with 6 wins. And 6 shirts won by Lionel Messi during Argentina's triumphant run at last year's Football World Cup have been sold for $12.6 million at an auction in New York. Michael Jordan's jersey from the opening game of the 1998 NBA final holds the record for the highest price paid for a game-worn sports memorabilia item. It sold for $16.3 million last year. And that's the news.
Tomorrow on Saturday morning, Michael Cunningham won a Pulitzer Prize for his book The Hours, and it was then adapted into an Oscar-winning film. He returns with Day, his first novel in a decade. And speaking of books, Kate DeGoldie and Elizabeth Knox will talk us through their literary picks of the year. Summer gardening with Kath Irvine. We're playing favourites with Anika Moa and nailing Christmas dinner with Josh Emmett. Call Susie Ferguson Aho. Join me this Saturday morning on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service until midnight tomorrow in the north and west from Northland to Manawa to mostly cloudy, patchy light showers or drizzle. Coromandel Bay of plenty in the central high country, also Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, fine apart from areas of morning and evening cloud. Hortowhenua to Wellington, also Waited Upper. Rain developing tomorrow, possibly heavy, easing in Waited Upper in the evening. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, occasional rain about Canterbury but clearing tomorrow. For Bulla, periods of rain with heavy falls and possible thunderstorms. Westland and Fiordland, rain with heavy falls and possible thunderstorms easing to a few showers and clearing tomorrow. Rain returning to Westland in the evening. For Otago and Southland, a few showers clearing tomorrow. And for the Chatham Islands, cloud increasing with some showers tomorrow evening. RNZ National. It is 5:07 and you're with Checkpoint and Lisa Owen.
Nā mihi, Anna. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai, haere mai, ki Checkpoint I tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Looking to one of the best summers we've ever had. The Coromandel is just days away from being stitched back together with a bridge due to open any day, reconnecting one side of the peninsula to the other. It has been a long year for communities coping without their Lifeline highway, which was taken out and washed away in the summer storms. For some, it meant long detours. For others, it meant moving house or boarding with others to be able to get to work and school. But ahead of time and under budget, the new connection is all but ready to go. Crews have been working 24/7 to get the job done, something the Prime Minister says he wants to see more of for other big projects around the country. Reporter Louise Tanuth and camera operator Nick Monroe went to check out the Coromandel's brand new connection.
It might just look like a stretch of road, but this is a 100-metre bridge spanning a massive abyss. A yawning gap left behind by the summer storms, washing away the state highway, causing major disruption and detours for the communities for whom this stretch of road is absolutely vital. The last lick of paint and final checks are being completed, and residents will be able to drive across the peninsula again by Wednesday, if not before. It's been a massive project that's come in ahead of time and under budget, not to mention the huge feat of engineering. Project Director Hugh Milliken describes the moment he got the call from Waka Kotahi to come and take a look at the damage after the summer's storms washed out the state highway.
Immediately realised that it would be very, very challenging. There was debates about whether it would be embankments and all sorts of things. It was immediately obvious that it needed to be a bridge. It was immediately obvious that it would need a very high level of effort. Came away down the site really energised, but at the same time, man, we need to get on with this.
And get on with it they did. Usually this type of bridge would take 12 to 14 months to construct, but this one took less than 7. The cost of the completed project is now expected to be about $43 million, less than earlier estimates of up to $50 million.
We've run afternoon shifts and night shifts and 7 days a week. We've never let time be a factor. If we've had to resource it and we've had to work all the hours, we have resourced it and we've worked all the hours.
Really exciting day for New Zealand. This is a really special day. And the reason
Prime Minister Christopher Luxon says State Highway 25A's rebuild project should be the blueprint for major roading repairs around the country, like for the Brynderwyns.
a big part of it is being able to work 24/7 and be able to make sure that you can press the time. If it means that you can work 3 shifts in a day rather than just 1 shift a day, you get the project done 3 times faster. I think this is a gold-plated example of what we want to see a lot more of across the country.
The finishing touches are now being put on the bridge, but by Wednesday, cars will finally be able to drive along it. 500 soil nails have been used to treat the unstable land, and 75 tonnes of concrete have been pumped into the slip. About 200 people have been part of this project, many leaving their families and moving to the area to get the job done. Regional Infrastructure Manager for Waka Kotahi, Joe Wilton, says the feedback they've had has made that all worth it.
The team got this beautiful Christmas card that was from the Tairua School, from the Tairua Primary School, where they'd all drawn us pictures of the slip, of the bridge, and written us all individual messages and just told us what a brilliant job we're doing, and that kind of thing's just gold for us.
Restoring the vital link that cut this community in half is extremely rewarding.
Just a brilliant outcome for us to be able to go, we've done it early and we've opened it up so that the Coromandel can enjoy, hopefully, a really sunny summer.
Thames Coromandel Mayor Len Salt is echoing these hopes. He says after catastrophic losses due to COVID, State Highway 25A was the last nail in the coffin for many businesses.
We know that over the last 12 months, it's cost our local business communities around $91 million at least. And that's just in credit card and FPOS transactions. We know that the number's actually more than that.
With the reopening set for the 20th of December or slightly before, he's hoping the return of the holiday home owners and tourists will be the kiss of life they desperately need.
I'm going to make a prediction that we are looking to probably one of the best summers that we've ever had. I'm hoping I'm right. It's been so tough that the only place we can go is up.
And when you drive up there on Wednesday next week,
To mark the occasion, the council put on a celebratory lunch to thank workers for building their bridge.
The team have pulled some huge hours, but they're all just so committed to get it done, so it's really nice to be there now.
A team that's been brought together from all different parts of New Zealand. No one knew each other, and everyone was thrown into a washing machine. Everything got thrashed out really quickly, and everyone just got on and worked together. It was phenomenal because that sort of thing just doesn't happen.
The Coromandel community ready to return to normal, ready to reconnect, ready for summer.
And if you were listening to that on radio, do check out the video version filmed by Nick Munro. Some amazing, amazing pictures of the bridge. It'll be on our webpage. 12 after 5, Kia amo tonu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. A quarter of swimming pools inspected in Auckland are failing safety requirements. The council is urging owners to lift their game this summer, saying unsupervised access to pools through faulty gates is one of the leading causes of drowning in preschoolers. In the past year, they've inspected 13,000 pools, 25% failed. And beware the blow-up pool and spas that are popular Christmas presents. The rules apply to many of those too. Auckland Council's head of compliance for pools, Stuart Ayres, says it's not good enough.
Yeah, that 25% for me is way too high. If you bear in mind, we do about 13,000 inspections per year in the Auckland region. That's quite a high number if you take that 25%. The thing for me that's even more disappointing with that number is we actually tell pool owners that we're actually coming to do their inspection. We say we're in your area, we're going to be doing your inspection in a couple of weeks, and we're still seeing a 25% failure rate. It's not good enough.
Tell us about what the failures are for.
Okay, our main failure point are gates that don't self-close and self-latch. So as you enter a swimming pool through a gate, that gate is supposed to self-close and latch behind you as you go in and out. And in the main, that is due to a lack of maintenance. So if people just, we inspect our pools every 3 years, but people really need to be checking that their gates and everything is working properly on a regular basis, not just before Auckland Council turn up.
Other things, I understand. Can you explain to me about pool furniture and also trees and other objects that could be climbed on, I suppose?
Yeah, one of the things that we do find is people tend to put sort of garden items up close to their pool fence. So that could be planter boxes, it could be chairs that you're using around a table. People tend to stack those things up right by the fence. Now, a child can use those things as a foothold to grab hold of the top of the fence and then hop in, so the outside perimeter of the fence needs to be kept clear of all of those type of items.
What happens when a pool fails?
Basically, we give the pool owner 21 days to fix the problem. If they don't fix it within 21 days, without a really valid reason, we can issue them with a thing called a notice to fix under the Building Act, which if they don't comply with that, we can issue them an infringement notice of $500.
And do you know how many of those notices you're giving out?
We give out approximately, just off the top of my head now, we probably issue about 20 of those per month. So it's not many, because in the main, pool owners do come to the party and they fix the stuff when we've identified it to them.
Some people in their heads, Stuart, will think of a pool as something that's sunken into the ground and is a pretty permanent structure. But I am interested, because these are very popular at Christmas time, blow-up portable pools and spas. Are they covered by the same rules?
Yes, it's a common misconception that they're not, but they are. Basically, anything that is constructed for swimming, bathing or wading that can hold 400 millimetres of water or more requires to be compliant with the legislation. Now, those large pools that you're talking about that are available from many of the big retailers, in the main, the side of those pools will act as the barrier because that's 1.2 metres high. But what needs to be fenced is the actual access point. So where you put the ladder into the pool to enter it, that actually needs a compliant fence and gate around it. Previously, prior to 2017 when the legislation changed, you could take that ladder away and just lock it away. That's not allowed anymore. That ladder needs to be fenced at that point where you access the pool.
And I suppose one of the reasons we're talking about this is the consequences of not following the rules. Can you just tell us, in terms of kids under 5, what role is the pool in a badly maintained pool in terms of safety? What role is that playing in the death of our young children?
Well, I mean, the legislation is there to protect under 5-year-olds. In the time that I've been team leader here at Auckland Council, it's nearly 3 years, we've averaged about 1 death per year of young children. So obviously the legislation is working because the numbers used to be a lot higher than that. But it's very, very important. That people just make sure that their fence complies, and that will hopefully keep reducing those numbers down.
How do you know who's got a pool, Stuart?
Auckland Council has a database. So basically, when you apply for a building consent for your pool fencing, you'll automatically get uploaded into our database. But we have just recently carried out a project where we used aerial imagery, and we had an artificial intelligence solution developed by a company, and we actually ran that over all of the imagery we've got for Auckland, and we actually identified nearly 4,000 pools that we didn't know about. So there's quite a few out there that we don't know about, or we didn't know about, I should say, and we're currently working through those and getting them compliant and getting them on our register.
And that was Stuart Ayres from Auckland Council. Senior Labour MP Kelvin Davis has called time on politics so as not to grow bitter and angry on the opposition benches. The former deputy leader has held ministerial roles in corrections, Māori Crown relations, children and tourism. He says it's now up to his colleagues to advocate for Māori Crown relations and has laid down a challenge for the new government. Our political reporter Annika Smith has more.
After 12 years in politics, Labour's Kelvin Davis is hanging up his hat. He's got another job, consulting with Indigenous peoples in Australia, and a brand new granddaughter.
I need to start thinking about myself, my family, my granddaughter now, and look at opportunities to be able to, be a father and a husband and a grandfather.
Kelvin Davis was unseated by Te Pāti Māori's Maria Meno Kapakingi in October. He foreshadowed he would leave before the 2026 election, but is pulling the pin now, having watched, as he puts it, the new government embark on destroying his party's legacy on Māori Crown relations.
There's little you can do from opposition other than get angry and frustrated, and I just didn't want to be this, bitter, angry person. Once I leave here, I'll walk out the door, and it's the people who are left here it's their job to fight the good fight.
Among those people is Willow Jean Prime, the highest-ranking Wahine Māori in Labour's caucus. She's willing to step up.
Kelvin, knows that there are other people, like he said, who wants to pick up the good fight. But he leaves us a huge challenge and big shoes to fill.
Te Pāti Māori had a strong showing this election, defeating some of Labour's Māori heavyweights, including Kelvin Davis, Nanaia Mahuta and Penny Hinare. Mr Hinare says the Māori Party employed an impressive strategy that mobilised New Zealand's Indigenous vote, and there's a lot to reflect on.
Clearly, there's some lessons here that, we perhaps we didn't sell it well enough. We didn't bring the country along the journey here. But that didn't mean that for large parts of the country, and even in particular for Māori communities, that kind of advancement wasn't either wanted or needed.
Carmel Sepuloni says Labour's Māori caucus is still strong.
Kelvin going is sad for us, and he will be missed. But we're certainly not diminished with respect to our Māori representation or that voice within the Labour caucus.
Kelvin Davis will officially call time on politics on Waitangi Day. He says the anniversary of the treaty signing is a calendar event Christopher Luxon must attend.
He should be there to front the iwi Chairs Forum, I think, on the Friday before Waitangi Day. He should be there for the pōhiri. His ministers should be down at the forum tents. They should be talking about their policies. They won't be popular, they will be challenged, but they still need to do it.
Christopher Luxon has said he intends to go to Waitangi next year, though it's not clear when and for how long. Kelvin Davis will be replaced by Tracy McClellan in February, who's next on Labour's list.
22 minutes after 5 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai Ofakaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program this evening, whether it's about fencing your pool, and don't forget the blow-up ones that you get given for Christmas, they count as well, or that wonderful new bridge that is about to be opened, State Highway 25A on the Coromandel, 2101 on text. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or the email address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Time to go to the headlines now. Ko Anna anō tēnā.
Thanks, Lisa. Public health expert Michael Baker says the fifth wave of COVID sweeping the country may have taken health authorities by surprise. Supplies of a key drug, Paxlovid, have run low, and Pharmac and Te Whatu Ora are working to get more of it into the country. Some pharmacies have completely run out, but almost 20,000 courses of the drug arrived yesterday. An eagerly awaited bridge reconnecting both sides of the Coromandel Peninsula is just 5 days away from being opened. Part of State Highway 25A between Kopu and Hikuai was washed away last summer. Thames Coromandel Mayor Len Salt says reopening before Christmas is vital for businesses. Foreign Minister Winston Peters has just touched down in Fiji for a 24-hour visit, his first overseas engagement since taking up the job. Fiji Prime Minister Sitivani Rabuka is expected to hold a bilateral meeting with Mr Peters and his delegation this evening. Level 2 water restrictions are being introduced in Napier from today. Hastings will also shift to Level 2 and Waimarama to Level 3 next Wednesday. The Napier City Council's Director of Infrastructure Services, Russell Bond, says the city needs to conserve water in case of drought or emergency. And English football's Premier League is about to get the first female referee. Rebecca Welch will officiate Fulham's game against Burnley on December the 23rd. And those are the headlines, Lisa.
Thank you, Anna. It is 24 after 5. Kia mau tunu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. It's time for the business news now. Ko taku hoa e nai ko Nona Peltier. Nona's in the studio with what looks like, I don't know, a summer reading there, Nona. What have you got? Manufacturing news.
I can't stop myself from reading this stuff, Lisa. It's riveting. In this case, we're talking about manufacturing. So this is the Performance of Manufacturing Index. We get this number every month. And this month, apparently, there's a little Christmas cheer, I'm sorry to say. Yes. Well,
you mean not a little of Christmas cheer, you mean very little Christmas cheer.
I don't want to say very because, but it is little. Okay. Little. So we're talking here about where we're at with manufacturing. It's been in contraction for some time. It's improved a little bit, but it's still into contraction. So we're at 46.7. Anything below 50 is contraction, and that's where we're sitting still. It's an improvement of 3.8 points, so that's a bit better, but we're not in the expansion mode. What's holding things back is really new orders. There isn't a lot of that going on. Sales are down as well. And I guess that's finished. That's starting to flow through, or has been flowing through, into production. That's quite low at 43.6. That's not a good number. It really means that we have a long way back to improve manufacturing and get it back into expansion. When or how, I don't know. But there you go.
Okay, brace position if you're going to be travelling by plane in the next few days and weeks. Air New Zealand is gearing up for some big numbers. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so they're expecting 1 million customers flying domestically around New Zealand over the period, between now and the end of January. In addition, 700,000 international passengers too. And they reckon that on next Friday, it's going to be the busiest day, 50,000 people are expected to be traveling that day. So
get there really.
Get there. And also, they're going to be loaded with cargo. So they'll probably be checking your bag weights, just saying. So if you...
Why are you looking at me when you say that? No.
Well, where should I look? Okay. Well, I'm looking at you because I'm talking.
Okay,
in this
all right,
direction.
You're not accusing me of anything.
Yeah,
all right,
I don't know, Lisa. Are you one of those
Am I one of those people that sort of slips a few extra kilos into the bag? But beware, summer.
Beware if you've got extra gifts and baggage and what have you. buy some extra baggage because you don't want to have to leave your Chrissy presents at the airport, do you? No. All right. Well, that would be something. All right. So what? Okay, you might want to know what happened in the markets then.
Always want to know what happened in the markets.
So the NZX Top 50 Index ended down just 3 little points to 11,550. That compares with a rally in Asia. We didn't see that, but, 3 points down isn't too bad. Trading the dollar at 62.2 US cents, 92.5 Australian and 48.7 British pence. And next week we'll be back, although I don't know that you will be, Lisa.
Don't give away the game, Nona.
Well,
right, you'll be back next week to tell us more. Wonderful.
I will definitely be
We'll
back.
be tuned in. Thank you, Nona. Ka kite. That is Nona Peltier with Business News. Okay, it is the pothole payment they tried to keep secret after battling for more than a year. A man whose car was damaged by a hole in the road has finally got compensation from Auckland Transport. Stephen Doyle lodged a claim with the agency for repairs to a wheel busted when he hit a pothole on Lee Road, north of Auckland, in 2021. But it refused to pay, basically saying it was only liable if it had knowingly left a hazard unrepaired. Now, we know a lot of you have suffered pothole damage because you text us about it, but you've had no joy in terms of compo. Well, Stephen Doyle didn't give up and finally got a goodwill payment of almost $900. So how did he do it? Well, Stephen joins us now. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Lisa.
Was it worth the effort? Because it sounds like a hell of a trip.
Oh, boy. It was a lot of emails. I'd sent over 30 emails back and forth. I'd had some fairly dismissive explanations from Auckland Transport. And really the turning point was when I started to investigate their own code, technical standards code, and undertook a Lagoima request, which is basically delving into their database to see what records they had about the road maintenance. And sure enough, that popped up that they tried to repair this issue 3 or 4 times, unsuccessfully each time. And so that really just proved that they had been negligent. So still didn't admit any fault after that, unfortunately. But certainly a long road to try and get some compensation.
Take us back to your journey. You're going along the road in your car and just relive it for us. What happened and what kind of damage was there?
I was actually with my family at the time, and we were just having a bit of an outing, and drove through this bridge, and there was just this almighty bang, and the tyres on my car are reasonably low profile, so I didn't know what I'd hit, but it sounded quite serious. So we stopped a little while later, and sure enough, the wheel was buckled. So immediately phoned Auckland Transport. They gave me some fairly good assurances at the time. Don't worry, this will get fixed up. Just put the claim for compensation in, and you'll hear back from us in about 10 working days. Well, had that 10 working days come up, and their explanation was that we'd fully investigated the matter, but really they hadn't done anything at all. They hadn't bothered to phone me. They hadn't bothered to look at their own records to see whether there was any validity in my claim, and
So, Stephen, the clincher for you was, as I understand it, being able to show that they were aware of the pothole, that they had attempted to patch it, but they knew that, well, it wasn't up to scratch, the repair.
That's right, yep. And also just reviewing their technical standards. So their standards said that, if my memory serves me right, that the level between the road and the bridge could not be more than 25 millimetres or something like that. And it was in excess of that. So their repair was basically inadequate for the hole that had developed. So really, I think it was those two matters combined, proving that they had knowledge already and also proving that their repairs were inadequate, which was the main turning point.
But you had to turn True Detective to get this right, and I'm picking it probably cost the agency, Auckland Transport, more in time and money and staff answering your queries than it would have to pay your bill for the tyre and your car being assessed. So
definitely.
Why do you think they were so reluctant to settle?
I think they were reluctant to set a precedent. It certainly took a long time. In the end, I sort of wouldn't let it rest because I'd devoted so much time to trying to get to the bottom of things. I actually asked for an interview with the CEO at the time, and that was refused. I gave them assurances that I wouldn't necessarily talk about this particular matter, but I would talk about the conduct of their staff and their processes. And again, that was declined. So I was meeting many brick walls along the road there. So.
I'm also interested in the fact that, they would prefer that you weren't talking to anyone about the fact that you got money for pothole damage. What was the deal? In terms they wanted you to sign something to not speak?
Yeah, well, I'd already been paid, which was the peculiar thing. So the money was in my account, and then I think it was about 10 working days later, I'd received a settlement and confidentiality agreement, and they said, well, would you like to sign this? And obviously because I had the money already, there was no need at all, so I refused at the time.
So a non-disclosure agreement, Stephen? They wanted you to sign a non-disclosure agreement, basically?
That's right, yeah, that the contents of that deed would remain confidential. I'd accepted a lesser sum than what I thought I was deserved. I just wanted to move on at the time, but I'd thrown them back at them and said maybe I'd sign that agreement if I'd received the full amount of compensation. So yeah, that's where things are at.
Any advice to motorists? Because we do get a lot of feedback on this. People hit potholes all the time, and that has consequences. Advice to anyone else who's going through this complaints process?
I think the Lagoima process is very, very simple, so I would suggest...
so that's the local body, OIA, basically. This is
Correct.
Asking for documents from a local a council or similar, yeah.
That's correct. Easy process. I think it takes about 2 weeks for that information to come back. I would say be very specific about the questions that you ask in terms of the location where you'd hit that pothole. Ask for the road records, the repairs that have been done over the last 12 months. And I think that will establish whether this is a known issue to the authority or whether it's a new issue that's popped up and maybe they're not negligent and maybe they didn't know about it.
Really good to talk to you, Stephen. We appreciate your time. That's Stephen Doyle, motorist who hit a pothole, and he did manage to get some money out of Auckland Transport and its contractors after proving that the repair was not done correctly. 2101 on text. Interested in your thoughts on that one. Tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. We do hear a lot from you about problems with the roads. So wonder what you think of that. The White Ferns are getting a rare opportunity to play under lights in today's second one-dayer against Pakistan in Christchurch. New Zealand lead the match, the three-match series 1-0 after a big win on Tuesday, and we're joined by sports reporter Felicity Reid. Okay, Felicity, delayed the conversation so you could get us the latest information. What is happening with the game so far?
Yes, we did. So this is quite an unusual afternoon start time for the women. They don't normally get a day-night match. They are going to get a few more opportunities for that this coming summer, though. This time round, though, the White Ferns won the toss and opted to bowl. They made an immediate impact and took a wicket on the first ball. Pakistan were then 2 down by the 6th over, 3 down by the 11th over, and 35 for 4 at the start of the 13th over. By this time, 4 different New Zealand bowlers had taken a wicket each, and the middle order from Pakistan had a bit of a fight back there. Number 6 batter, Fatima Sana, she was the standout. She got 90, but a couple of quick wickets from spinner Fran Jonas near the end of the innings there. They've just wrapped up the Pakistan innings and they got 220 for 9. So the White Ferns in about half an hour's time will be chasing that, so that's 221. If they manage to get that, they'll wrap up the one-day series with the final game of the series to be played on Monday. So this is a bit of a stark contrast from that opening win on Tuesday where New Zealand put more than 300 runs on the board, so it'll be an interesting chase in Christchurch.
Let's talk about the Women's World Cup, FIFA Women's World Cup. There is a report out into our co-hosting of that. What does it show? Was it worth it?
Well, a Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment report highlighted the World Cup netted the economy more than $100 million. $50 million of that came into Auckland. So if anyone had gone along to one of these games or watched on TV, you probably saw a lot of those international fans there. There was 27,000 international visitors purely here for the tournament. I think we've spoken a few times about ticket sales and about lagging ticket sales, but they did better than expected and got 740,000 issued across New Zealand, across the tournament and all the main centres that had these games. And the report also indicated the event has permanently altered New Zealand's perception of women in sport, adding to our country's proud history of advocating for gender equality. That's according to MB. And also, remember, this was the third Women's World Cup that we'd held in recent years. That was after the cricket and the rugby. But it's going to be a little while until we get another World Cup. So hopefully that economic impact will encourage more people to be bidding and maybe co-hosting in New Zealand.
Thank you, Felicity. That's our sports reporter, Felicity Reid. His distinctive buildings attract crowds from around the world, and his environmental vision was decades ahead of his time. Now, his extraordinary property in the remote corner of the Bay of Islands is finally about to open to the public. Northern reporter Peter de Graaf gets a sneak
24 years ago, the acclaimed Austrian artist, architect and environmentalist Friedensreich Vasa locked the door to his New Zealand bolt hole and headed off on a cruise. He died days later, aged 72, and his home in an artfully converted pigsty has barely been touched since. Close friend Richard Smart says the property at Kauri-Nui, an isolated valley near Kaukaua, was Vasa's sanctuary.
It was a place that he came to as a getaway, a hideaway, a retreat, a place where he could work, where he'd be away from the public eye, a very private space, really. It's now finally being allowed to be open to the public, and this will give people a real close personal look at how he lived. It's really unprecedented because it has never been opened before.
Apart from 2 new buildings to cater for visitors and exhibitions, the property has been left as it was the day Vasa left. Even his last shopping list is still hanging on the pigsty wall.
The restoration is all about making it as it was when he was around. He didn't have everything shiny bright and pristine, and so we've got that back.
The tour also stops at the Bottle House, a former milking shed where Vasa first tried out ideas like his signature bottle walls and earth roofs.
This behind you is the original bottle wall, and this is truly beautiful. To me, this epitomizes Vasa. Look at the light it lets through. It's like a stained glass window.
Inside the Bottle House, a hand-cranked radio offers another insight.
He loved this kind of thing, which is just free energy. Interactions with
The property also features a man-made cave, as Mr. Smart explains.
Vasa thought that if you had a piece of property and you could have a cave, you should have one, because if you can go in there, sit down, relax and experience the environment, you can really ponder where you came from.
But it turns out visitors don't get the cave entirely to themselves.
It's full of cave wetters, and I hope nobody's got any problem with those, because they don't have any problem with us. So come on in and we'll go have a look. And keep your head down. So, yeah, there's lots of them.
Oh my God!
There's also a new exhibition space under construction to display artwork provided by the Vasa Foundation in Vienna.
This will house an exhibition of Vasa memorabilia, stuff that he did in New Zealand. It will be very different from what's at the Vasa Arts Centre.
Fundraising coordinator Helen Whittaker says the new attraction has been named Living Vasa because, in a way, he's still living there.
This is a living creation. It was converted from a dairy farm where there were few trees, and this is how he wanted to live, immersed in nature. Vasa is buried here under a tulip tree, so he also lives on through the property as well.
The last stop of the tour is the tulip tree. Once a mere sapling in a paddock, it's now a sizable tree in a dense forest known as the Garden of the Happy Dead. Richard Smart picks up the tour again.
He's buried here. He's the compost that's feeding this tree. And that's why I say we do feel that he's alive and here and with us. He's really returned to nature and he's made his final contribution to our better future.
Living Vasa is expected to open for small group tours in late summer once the exhibition arrives from Vienna.
It's 20 minutes to 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Homai o whakaaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program this evening, 2101 on text or tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. And actually I need a favour. We have one of our producers here who is looking for a cracker of a book, some book recommendations, Anna, for the summer, for his weeks off. So can you please help us out with that one? 2101 on text or tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, a book that you would recommend for a summer read. He likes crime mysteries, Anna, but is open to suggestions.
Okay, Terry Hayes, I Am Pilgrim. Absolutely one of the best reads I've ever had. It will blow his mind. Kind of a little bit like a vaccine. Someone introduces a vaccine-resistant superbug.
I know. Sounds too much like reality.
I know. But he's just released a new book too, which is what I'm going to read this summer.
I was going to say, what is that one called?
The Year of the Locust, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but I Am Pilgrim. It's just brilliant. Such a good read.
All right. Tell us your recommendations, 2101 on text. Tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Let's go to the headlines now. Ko Anna Anō tēnei.
Thanks, Lisa. Public health expert Michael Baker says the fifth wave of COVID sweeping the country may have taken health authorities by surprise. Supplies of a key drug, Paxlovid, have run low and some pharmacies are out of it completely. Pharmac and Te Whatu Ora are working to get more into the country. A quarter of private swimming pools checked by the Auckland Council this year have been found to be unsafe. The council's pool compliance leader, Stuart Ayres, says faulty gates were the most common reason for a failed inspection. He told Checkpoint the figure is even more disappointing, given that owners are advised in advance that the council is coming to check their pools. An eagerly awaited bridge reconnecting both sides of the Coromandel Peninsula is just 5 days away from being opened. Part of State Highway 25A between Kopu and Hikuwai was washed away last summer. Thames Coromandel Mayor Len Salt says reopening before Christmas is vital for businesses. Foreign Minister Winston Peters has arrived in Fiji for a 24-hour visit, his first overseas engagement since taking up the job. And a state memorial for one of Australia's most loved entertainers, the late Barry Humphries, has been held in the Sydney Opera House. Tributes to the creator of Dame Edna Everage and Sir Les Patterson included one from King Charles, who said life won't be the same without Barry Humphries. And one piece of traffic news, a crash had been blocking the right lane northbound between Drury and Papakura. It's been cleared, but you can expect delays there. Lisa, those are the headlines. Before we move on, can you tell me what your book recommendation would be?
Epic Runs of the World. Now, before you tell me I'm regressing, it is a picture book, but it has text.
Okay.
Text. It shows you the locations.
Nothing wrong with picture books.
No, amazing runs in all parts of the world. Italy, South Africa, aspirational, with a little bit of information about the district and the area. It was a gift to me, and it's a book that you can revisit. That's what I like about it, and you find something new in it every time.
Love it.
So I can't wait to hear people's recommendations. 2101 on text. The truth is transitioning from darkness to light. Those were the words uttered by the coroner as she drew the curtain on the inquest into the deaths of the 51 people shot at Christchurch's Al Noor Mosque and Linwood Islamic Centre in 2019. For 7 weeks, brutal evidence has been heard by the court about what happened on March 15th, the emergency response that followed and what improvements could be made. Neva Chittick was there.
Fatima Ali, who represents some of the victims and their families, lets her tears flow as she describes the deep effects of the loss experienced in a matter of minutes on March 15th, 2019.
I first acknowledge the Shuhada, the 51 beloved members and pillars of this community. The Shaheed were the mothers, fathers, children, siblings and family members of those who have attended these court proceedings. We acknowledge the lives, the intentions and the aspirations that were robbed by this attack. We acknowledge the loss to the community as a whole, the loss of elders, leaders, young people and familiar faces that would congregate every Jummah.
And Tuhi says it's critical the lessons from that awful day are not lost.
My clients are grateful for the fact of this inquest and the opportunity to participate in this hearing. Through this process, questions they have had for nearly 4 years about what happened to their loved ones have been answered.
For those survivors and victims' families represented by Catherine Dalzell, the feelings are mixed.
This was not the first time our clients experienced hate for their faith or their ethnicity in Aotearoa. Hopefully the public nature of this coronial hearing will reinforce that what happened on March 15 was a crime against humanity. It could happen to anyone, and hate is never the answer.
Police lawyer Mark Zarifa says many first responders also still struggle to come to terms with that dark day.
As has become apparent from the evidence at the inquest, many of the responders are still deeply affected. Each of the police and ambulance officers who responded that day were doing their job and trying desperately to save lives to the best of their abilities. They put their own safety at risk in order to try and protect others.
In her closing statements, Deputy Chief Coroner Bridget Windley says the inquest has helped unearth the truth and turn it into power.
While the issues in this inquiry have been approached from a range of perspectives, I am confident that our collective understanding of the events of March 15 is in transition from darkness to light. The work of this inquiry and this inquest is the work of many hands, minds and hearts.
But it does not end today.
Rest assured, this court will be working hard to complete findings, processes required under the Coroner's Act as soon as is possible. But I can say that it will not be before the 5th anniversary of the attack next year. There are, of course, further issues still to be explored in this inquiry.
Those issues include how the terrorist was radicalised online, how he obtained his firearms, and how the community can identify threats. They will be addressed after the first phase recommendations are released next year. For now, this Friday the 15th, the prayers sounded different, buoyed by a sense of healing that many say the inquest has finally helped to begin.
It is 12 minutes away from 6. Kia amo tonu mai. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. A Christchurch startup wants to bring steam power to the Pacific Islands to help cacao farmers dry their beans. Mackwell & Co. have reimagined the old steam engine into what they see as the cutting edge of low-tech. Organic matter that would otherwise be thrown out in the islands can now be turned into clean energy. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
It's generally thought of as a technology of the past, advanced maybe 300 years ago. But Christchurch startup Mackwell & Co. believes steam power has a role in moving the world away from fossil fuels.
We are developing tools to empower energy sovereignty, and we're doing that by reinventing, rediscovering the steam engine.
Unlike traditional steam engines that have a reputation for being dirty, Sam Mackwell, chief engineer and director of the company, says the burning process is clean.
What we've developed is a combustion system that eliminates the smoke and particulate emissions. And when you eliminate that, you eliminate all of that dirt that would cover everything in the vicinity of a steam locomotive depot.
The engine uses organic biomass like wood chips as fuel, allowing farms to become energy independent. Mr. Mackwell says trees are nature's solar panels and batteries all in one.
A farm only needs to set aside about 2% of its land area to grow enough fuel to run this technology indefinitely, so continuously forever, basically.
The company is looking to work in the Pacific to assist cacao growers dry out their beans, which can quickly turn mouldy. Growers revert to drying cacao through fires if they can't rely on sunny weather, but smoke can bring down the price. Keith Budd with Grow Asia Pacific says this year Samoa cacao farmers lost about 30% of their product through the drying process.
There are occasions, of course, when the rain comes in and if that happens for a number of days, the beans will get spoiled. And, of course, that's a loss of production and loss of income for the farmers.
Mr. Budd says the engine also allows Pacific communities to dispose of organic waste.
A lot of these countries don't have the ability to get rid of rubbish. They don't have a rubbish refuse collection or anything like that. And this provides another opportunity to get rid of some of that.
It's what Mackwell call the cutting edge of low tech. What would be thrown out can now be used as fuel.
The really only viable solution they have right now is using natural gas, LPG, but that's far too expensive in the islands and kind of contributes to the problem of climate change as well.
Business development lead William Bowden says the steam engine can also create electricity and clean water. That, coupled with the low-tech nature, makes it a good fit for remote communities.
We've eliminated as best as we can electrical components and other sort of common areas that fail on more high-tech equipment. And so the idea being that any regional workshop in small towns in New Zealand or in the Pacific could fix and repair this technology.
The company hopes to get the engine into the Pacific late next year.
After a day of sweating it out in a tin shed near Gore, two cousins have smashed the world record for the number of sheep shorn in 8 hours by two women. Their total, 1,293. The cousins, champion shearer Megan Whitehead and Hannah McCall, have eclipsed the record of 903, and that was set by a mother and daughter team about a decade and a half ago. Well, it all happened at a Grant Brothers farm near Gore, and joining us now is the farm owner, Cameron Grant. Well, that's pretty amazing, Cameron, isn't it?
It's pretty unbelievable, yep.
So how are they?
Yep.
Broken biscuits? Are they looking all right after that epic effort?
They're looking pretty good at the moment. They're pretty worn out. They're pretty sweaty, and they're having a wee bit of time to themselves at the moment.
Can you just explain to people how much of a physical toll, how tough that is to share the number of sheep that pair has today?
You need a pretty big ticker to do what these two girls have done. It's I don't know how to describe it. Like these girls are sharing more than some men, it's unbelievable. And to be here all day in the shed and watch them blow down on each end of the board is pretty unreal. They'll be physically exhausted. They've trained and been on diets and probably no sugar and definitely no alcohol. They've put a huge effort into this.
What kind of training do you do for a record attempt like this?
So these girls share all day and then they're in the gym at night, running, and obviously around dietitians and have exercise programs. They have guys doing that for them all the time, when they do. So probably for the last 7 to 8 months, these girls have not probably had a drink and have had a pretty strict diet and a pretty strict gym program.
What does a sheep weigh?
These lambs were probably averaged 32 to 35 kilos, somewhere in there.
Flippin' heck.
We started, Megan's father, Condon, obviously we were involved when Megan did her solo 9-hour record back in 2021, and then this one evolved in the last 3 years. Condon's been out here when we wean our lambs. He's been doing wall weights and working out the best time, and he got it perfect yesterday. Like, I think they needed, when they do a wall weight, they've got to share 900.9 of a kilo each lamb, and they share 20 lambs, and I think it added up to 18 kilos we needed. And I think the official weight was 18.04, so he got it bang on.
So, Cameron, there is a strict assessment of the fleeces coming off these sheep, is there? And also
they share 20 before and do the wall weight, and if they get the wall weight out of that 20, so the judges come here the day before, they select some sheep and draft every 20 sheep till they get 20, and then they share them and weigh the wool.
So if you get a bit sloppy during the record attempt, does that sheep get discounted?
Yeah, and I just haven't seen the tally what the girls shore. They shore more than those tallies, but I'm pretty confident I'm giving you the official tallies when I gave what I gave you earlier. But yes, if these sheep are judged, and they're judged to a standard, and if they're shearing too rough, they get warnings. They get sheep taken off them, and if they cut one too badly, they'll get a reject sheep, and it's deducted, and they're only allowed 5 reject sheep for the day, and if they go over that, the record will be stopped. But the girls didn't do that.
5 rejects over 8 hours? That's the only bit of leeway you get?
That's all they get, yep.
I imagine, I'm just looking at a couple of pictures of these women in action. They look like absolute machines. Would it be your back and your arms that at the end of the day are just screaming for mercy?
Definitely, I'd say so, yeah. But they're pretty fit, and they'll be, I don't know if they'll be shearing tomorrow, but they'll be back shearing on Monday, I'd suggest.
Crikey. Were there many people watching? Was it pretty amazing to watch them?
The shed's chocker, and there's been a live stream today. But yeah, there was no one got out of their seats at afternoon smoko, and the shed was squeezed full.
Hey, you mentioned afternoon smoko. We need to know, these women are fueled by what? What did you see them eating during the day? Because they do get a food break, right? So what do you need to eat to be a champion shearer?
I know they were carb loading yesterday, and I'm not 100% sure these girls are pretty zoned out today, so we try and they stay away from the public and the rest of us and eat on their own. So I honestly couldn't tell you what they were eating today.
Well, maybe they could just have a little carb drink tonight to celebrate, Cameron.
Yeah, no, they've definitely both. I've seen them. They both got a beer straight after, and they've both had a beer. So I imagine it's tasting pretty good for them, and not drinking in the last 6 to 8 months.
Brilliant. Hey, thank you so much. Fantastic to talk to you. That's Cameron Grant. He's on the farm. It's his farm near Gore, where this world record has just been broken. It stood at 903 sheep shorn in 8 hours, while this pair has totally eclipsed that, 1,293, the unofficial total. Megan Whitehead and Hannah McCall. Fantastic effort. A Palmerston North teenager who had travelled to London for treatment after he suffered a deep brain bleed says he's on the mend. Carson Harvey says his headaches have stopped and he's now looking forward to coming home next month after a second surgery. It's a trip that came after a massive fundraising effort towards the $150,000 cost. Jimmy Allingham spoke to Carson and his family Bruce in the UK.
It's almost 6 months since Carson Harvey's world changed. The active 16-year-old was heading for a gym workout when he felt a sharp pain in his neck. It turned out he had a rare, deep brain bleed caused by tangled blood vessels. The radiation surgery required wasn't possible in New Zealand, so 3 months ago Carson headed to London with his parents and soon had his first operation.
I feel much better, but yeah, I feel more normal. I just stop hurting, it's just when I stand up, I feel better. Everything's better, really.
Dad Bruce explains what was involved.
That entailed getting a cradle bolted to his head, so 2 bolts in the front, 2 in the back. And they'd already done scans and run traces through the blood to find out exactly where in the brain they're going to target. This cradle was bolted to the head so they could precisely point the radiation to the exact spots they need. And Carson had headaches for 2 or 3 days from it, and after that he was basically normal.
Carson's next operation is on January the 4th.
We'll come back to New Zealand on 15th of January and then he'll have some checkups from the neurosurgeons in Wellington as we go through. They won't know any true results of this operation if it's been a true success until 4 or 5 years, which we're at that time frame until after the first procedure.
Carson couldn't travel home between operations, so the family's been seeing the sights of London, although being careful to manage Carson's health.
Carson, you enjoyed the Tower of London?
Oh, yes, that was very good, yeah.
Yeah, the Tower Bridge as well.
I'm already noticing a massive improvement from what I used to do. I'm able to do pretty much everything. Yeah, still keeping it safe and everything, just making sure I don't overly strain myself. So just not doing anything too crazy, no roller coasters or anything like that yet.
And while they're making the most of their time in London, where they're staying in accommodation donated to them, home beckons.
I'm missing home quite a lot. I'm just missing some of the things I used to do, like hanging out with people I know, spending just with me and my parents, and
He's getting a bit bored with us.
Yeah, getting a bit bored with my parents, want to hang out with someone else.
Everything takes a long time in London. It's a crazy place. We love it here. Yeah, it's not like back in Palmerston North where it's just a 5-minute drive somewhere. Yes, it's such a different life.
Almost $130,000 was raised on Give a Little, and Palmerston North Boys High School, where Carson studies, also held fundraisers to get the Harvey family to London, as did many Manawatu workplaces and organisations. Carson expects next year to resume his studies at the school and take a car mechanics course at Palmerston North Polytech, UCOL. But first, there's the second operation to get through and Christmas abroad.
We're not doing anything much. It doesn't feel like Christmas, really, because we don't have family, the rest of our family and friends with us. So, yeah, it's a bit weird. So we'll do something, but probably just on a toast or something.
Also, from me, too, I just want to say thank you to everyone, just for all the support and everything, just helping me out during this difficult time.
Okay, before the news at 6, some of your book recommendations, they're coming in thick and fast. All the Books in the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osmond is one recommendation. Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I'm thinking that's the one that's been made into a TV series. It's fantastic. And few people agreeing with you that I Am Pilgrim is a pearler.
RNZ News at 6 o'clock. Good evening, I'm Anna Thomas. The Deputy Chief Coroner says the inquest into those who died in the 2019 Christchurch terror attacks has begun to bring the truth to the light. The inquest, which has run for the last 7 weeks, has finished with statements from the coroner, lawyers on behalf of the victims and emergency services, a Quran reading and a moment of silence. Coroner Bridget Windley says the inquest has allowed lessons to be learnt from the dead to better protect the living.
While the issues in this inquiry have been approached from a range of perspectives, I am confident that our collective understanding of the events of March 15 is in transition from darkness to light. The work of this inquiry and this inquest is the work of many hands, minds and hearts.
The coroner's findings are reserved until at least April next year. A health professional says it's possible authorities have been taken by surprise by the fifth wave of COVID sweeping the country. Supplies of the antiviral drug Paxlovid are running low, and Pharmac and Te Whatu Ora are redistributing existing stock as demand runs high. Almost 20,000 courses of the drug arrived yesterday, and work is underway to secure more supplies next year. Professor Michael Baker says Paxlovid is critical for keeping people out of hospital and reducing deaths. He says with supplies stretched, one approach will be to focus on those most at risk, such as the elderly with underlying health conditions. Corrections is working out how to respond to a High Court decision that's ruled it must consider how to move illegally transferred prisoners back to Wellington. An August ruling found Corrections discriminated against female inmates when it moved them from Arohata Prison to Auckland and Christchurch because of short staffing. Deputy National Commissioner Bridget Keane says Corrections remains committed to managing people in prison safely and lawfully. She says addressing workforce pressures is a top priority, and Corrections has recruited more than 900 corrections officers since last October. The former head of the Senior Doctors Union says the UK's disastrous experience with public-private hospitals is a warning of where New Zealand should not go. One of this country's largest landlords of private hospital operators wants to put up new buildings with public health services as their anchor tenant. The landlord, Vital Healthcare Property Trust, says it can build and manage hospital buildings more cheaply. But ex-union leader Ian Powell says that is a form of public-private partnership, or PPP, that has backfired in Britain.
They're a big drain now on the health dollar in the UK. There's a lot of sting in the tail.
The coalition government's policy is to explore the types of leaseback arrangements that Vital offers. A Northland-based Labour MP says Kelvin Davis will leave behind big shoes to fill. Mr Davis will leave politics effective from Waitangi Day. First elected in 2008, Mr Davis has been a minister and a senior figure in the Labour Party as deputy leader. He was defeated by Te Pāti Māori in Te Tai Tokoro in October, but stayed on as a list MP. Willow Jean Prime says Mr Davis will leave a big challenge for Labour's remaining Māori MPs.
So those of us that are still there and those that are coming in to continue the good fight that he has put up for Māori Crown relations, for Māori education, for our tamariki in Oranga Tamariki, there is a huge challenge there for those of us that are going to take on that mahi now that he is moving on.
And Kelvin Davis has a new consulting job with Indigenous peoples in Australia. Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters has touched down in Fiji for a 24-hour visit, his first overseas engagement since taking up the Foreign Minister role. Fiji Prime Minister Sitivani Rabuka is expected to hold a bilateral meeting with Mr Peters and his delegation this evening. Climate change, development and security cooperation are among the agenda items. Mr Peters will meet with the outgoing Secretary-General of the Pacific Islands Forum, Henry Puna, tomorrow morning and visit a New Zealand-funded development project in the town of Nausori before returning to New Zealand. The New Zealand home of the acclaimed Austrian artist, architect and environmentalist Friedensreich Hundertwasser is due to open to the public for the first time early next year. Close friend Richard Smart says the property at Coromandel in Isolated Valley near Kawakawa in the Bay of Islands is just as the artist left it before he died 24 years ago.
It was a place that he came to as a getaway, a hideaway, a retreat, a place where he could work, where he'd be away from the public eye, a very private space, really. It's now finally being allowed to be open to the public, and this will give people a real close personal look at how he lived. It's really unprecedented because it has never been opened before.
And Richard Smart says small group tours are expected to start in late summer once an exhibition of Hundertwasser's work arrives from Vienna. To sport, and the White Ferns are chasing a 221 for victory in the second one-day cricket international against Pakistan in Christchurch. Pakistan captain Fatima Sana top scored for the visitors with an unbeaten 90 runs. White Ferns captain Sophie Devine was the best with the ball, taking 3 wickets for 25 runs. New Zealand lead the 3-match series 1-0. And that's the news.
This week on Music 101, we celebrate the best albums and singles of 2023. Kirsten Morale of Golden Horse performs her new solo material. And as we come to the end of the year, we feature a compilation of our favourite mixtape guests and their music picks. Music 101 with me, Charlotte Ryan, this Saturday from 1 p.m. here on RNZ National.
And now the short forecast from Met Service until midnight tomorrow. In the north and west, from Northland to Manawatu, mostly cloudy, patchy, light showers or drizzle. Coromandel Bay of Plenty in the central high country. Also Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, fine apart from areas of morning and evening cloud. Ora Whenua to Wellington, also Wairarapa, rain developing tomorrow, possibly heavy, easing in Wairarapa in the evening. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, occasional rain about Canterbury but clearing tomorrow. For Buller, periods of rain with heavy falls and possible thunderstorms. Westland and Fiordland, rain, heavy falls and possible thunderstorms, easing to a few showers and clearing tomorrow. Rain returning to Westland in the evening. For Otago and Southland, a few showers, clearing tomorrow. Chatham Islands, cloud increasing with some showers tomorrow evening. RNZ National, it is 7 minutes past 6 and you're with Checkpoint and Lisa Owen.
Thank you, Anna. No mai, hoki mai. This is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. A top US official is in Israel holding intense and detailed conversations with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the conversation has focused on shifting to lower intensity combat and more surgical strikes. It's reported nearly half of the munitions dropped on Gaza are of non-precision variety. CNN's Clarissa Ward has been in Gaza and a warning her report is distressing.
Used to be a stadium.
Arriving at the Emirati Field Hospital, we meet Dr. Abdullah Al-Nakbi. No sooner does our tour begin when...
Our ambulance.
And this is what you hear all the time now?
Yes. At least 20 times a day.
At least 20 times a day?
Maybe more sometimes. But I think we got used to it.
One thing none of the doctors here have got used to is the number of children they are treating. The UN estimates that some 2/3 of those killed in this round of the conflict have been women and children. 8-year-old Janan was lucky enough to survive a strike on her family home that crushed her femur but spared her immediate family. She says she's not in pain, so that's good. Her mother, Hiba, was out when it happened. I went to the hospital to look for her, she says, and I came here and I found her here. The doctors told me what happened with her, and I made sure that she's okay. Thank God. They bombed the house in front of us and then our home, Janan tells us. I was sitting next to my grandfather, and my grandfather held me, and my uncle was fine. So he is the one who took us out. Don't cry. But Dr. Ahmed Al-Mazraoui says it is hard not to.
I work with old people, like adults, but with children, no. Something touching your heart.
Touches your heart and tests your faith in humanity. As we leave Janan, Dr. Al-Nakbi comes back with the news of casualties arriving from the strike just 10 minutes earlier.
We just got us. They will send right now 2 amputated young male from the bomb.
From the Qasaf we just heard, from the bomb we just heard?
This is my understanding.
Okay.
They will arrive to our red area.
A man and a 13-year-old boy are wheeled in, both missing limbs, both in a perilous state. What's your name? What's your name? The doctor asks. The notes provided by the paramedics are smeared with blood. The tourniquet improvised with a bandage. Since the field hospital opened less than 2 weeks ago, it has been inundated with patients. 130 of their 150 beds are already full. So let me understand this. You are now basically the only hospital around that still has some beds?
I guess so, yes. Or maybe I'm very sure of that, because they are telling me one of the hospital with a capacity of 200, they are accommodating 1,000 right now. And the next door hospital, I'm not very sure, he said like 50 to 100, it has maybe 400 to 500 patients. So at one occasion he called me, he said, I have 3 patients in each bed, please take any. I told him, send as many as you can.
I mean, we've been here 15 minutes, and this is already what we're seeing.
And this is, you heard it, you see it.
In his first major press conference since he launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the country's objectives have not changed. Mr. Putin says there are currently a total of 617,000 Russian troops fighting in Ukraine. The BBC's Russia editor Steve Rosenberg was at the event.
There haven't been many, actually any, opportunities for Western media to get anywhere near Vladimir Putin since his full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But today, the Kremlin invited us and other foreign media to the president's end-of-year TV extravaganza. Half press conference, half phone-in. On the war in Ukraine, he's sounding confident.
There will be peace when we achieve our goals. They haven't changed. Practically along the entire line of contact, our armed forces are, to put it modestly, improving their position. They are in an active stage of operation.
There was a definite military theme to the show, which was broadcast by every main TV channel in Russia and went on for hours. The public had plenty of questions about what the Kremlin's still calling its special military operation. Like, would there be a new wave of mobilization in Russia? Mr. Putin said no. This didn't happen last year. The Kremlin had cancelled the annual Putin phone-in and his end-of-year press conference following the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The fact that the 4-hour TV marathon is back reflects his growing confidence nearly 2 years into the war. He was asked about 2 Americans being held in Russian jails, Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and former Marine Paul Whelan. Is a prisoner swap possible?
We want to do a deal, but these agreements should be mutually beneficial. We're in contact with our American partners on this matter. A dialogue is underway. It's not easy. I won't go into detail, but in general, I think we understand each other. And I hope that we will find a solution.
Irina was lucky. She got a question about egg prices. You're my favourite president, she says. But all I got, after 4 hours, was a sore arm. Pity that. I have so many questions for Vladimir Putin. Another day, perhaps.
It's 14 minutes past 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. When the Taliban captured Kabul more than 2 years ago, tens of thousands of Afghans were evacuated by the US for their safety. But many were left behind and are taking a much riskier journey to the United States. The BBC's Reagan Morris travelled to Tijuana on the US-Mexico border, where Afghans have been arriving in record numbers since 2021.
Shukriya cries as she shows me footage of her journey across 11 countries to get from Afghanistan to Mexico.
Your leg is gashed from the jungle.
The photos show cuts they got from walking through rough terrain. Some show the young family sleeping on the streets. Torrential rain in Panama as they climb a mountain. And then she shows me a close-up of her daughter's face.
So they punched your 9-year-old daughter to get money.
Her eye bruised black and blue. Shukriya says armed gunmen made the men and women strip naked to search for money. Then they beat the children.
Fight was over money. They surrounded us and took what they wanted.
She says they're all traumatized. Many migrants hire smugglers to cross the Darien Gap in Panama, but Shukriya and other Afghans relied on directions they found on social media. And they just followed the crowd. Thousands of people now pass daily through the jungle, which was once considered impassable.
When we were crossing, we saw many dead bodies. That was the most tragic part of the travel.
Sophia was a student at the American University in Kabul, which made her eligible for a U.S. evacuation flight in 2021. But in all the chaos, she couldn't get through the crowds which mobbed the airport.
We were left behind, and then the U.S. embassy told us that you can go to Pakistan and fill a form, and we will process your case. But we stayed more than a year in Pakistan. But still our case was not getting processed.
The Latina Muslim Foundation opened this shelter in 2022 to give the growing number of Muslim migrants in Tijuana a place where they could pray and eat halal food and sleep safely in separate men's and women's dormitories. Outside the shelter, you can see the border wall. We are like a stone's throw away. And these Afghans and others we spoke to inside, they can't really do much but stay within the confines of that shelter because they don't feel safe outside. They're afraid they'll get arrested. So they stay inside waiting and waiting for an asylum appointment. They try every day to use the U.S. government's new CBP One app to get an appointment to claim asylum. The app was meant to simplify the process, but it hasn't. Some people get an appointment right away. Others say it just glitches and crashes all the time. Some wait weeks or months.
And that's why when they don't have any other options, they have to cross illegally to U.S.
How long have you been here?
I have been here more than 2 months.
Even if they do make it to the United States, their future is uncertain. The Afghan Adjustment Act, the legislation proposed by the Biden administration to grant permanent residency for many Afghan refugees, is stalled in the U.S. Congress. And with lawmakers debating ways to make claiming asylum much more difficult, their journey is far from over.
Every year at Christmas, the UK's Intelligence and Security Agency releases a code-breaking challenge aimed at testing problem-solving skills. This year, the GCHQ's challenge is aimed at children aged 11 to 18 and features a variety of puzzles featuring code-breaking in maths. But it's not only children getting involved. The BBC's Tim Muffet reports.
Hello, my name's Anne Keys-Butler and I'm the Director of GCHQ. And today it's a real privilege to set you a very special festive challenge with our Christmas card.
Lateral thinking.
They're looking out for who can think outside the box.
Ingenuity.
Interesting, because it's not just like a normal maths question, it's like different.
And perseverance.
Quite difficult, but I think we can all do it.
All are being tested here. We've been granted rare access to the Manchester base of GCHQ, the UK's Intelligence, Security and Cyber Agency. Since 2015, it's included a brain teaser on its Christmas cards. And for the third year running, it's also set a festive, mind-bending challenge for school pupils.
So how are you finding it? Very difficult.
As well as students from Sale High School, also having a go is 100-year-old Betty Webb.
Scarborough, Sirius and Sticky.
Betty worked at Bletchley Park during World War II as part of the top-secret team that cracked Nazi codes.
It took a certain type of brain to deal with it, bearing in mind that all the messages were in groups of 5 letters or 5 figures.
It changed the course of history, didn't it?
Absolutely, yes. We don't know exactly how much it shortened the war, but clearly it was 2 to 3 years. These clocks show a 4-letter word. Can you work it out? Yes, this could well be a letter cipher.
Whoa, big clue from Betty. That's when numbers relate to the position of a letter in the alphabet.
What breaks but cannot fall, can leap but never crawl, can be seized but never gripped, often present, never skipped. Quite cryptic, isn't it? Maybe if I get a strong gin and tonic, I'll have to work something like that.
Is that the key to
cracking a code, a strong gin and tonic?
Pass.
You have 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes. When it comes to recruitment, GCHQ has been widening the net. For example, it's keen for neurodiverse candidates to apply for jobs. So people with conditions such as autism, ADHD or dyslexia. It believes different ways of thinking are key to keeping the UK safe.
Foreign language skills are also highly valued.
One of the questions we do get asked a lot in school is, why do I need to learn a language? So this just really promotes the need for languages in a global community that we live in, and just the cognitive skills it brings with them as well.
Betty's ability to speak German was key to her posting at Bletchley Park.
Of course, we weren't allowed to talk about anything we were doing. For me, it was an opportunity to meet people I would otherwise not have met, because I hadn't been to university or anything like that.
You must feel very proud that you were there.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, chance in a million, really. I always used to do the code work in the Telegraph. I haven't done it lately. I'm too busy.
OK, everyone, your time is up. How was it?
When you first look at it, it's quite daunting because you have no idea what all these things are, but then after working quite a few of them out, it gets easier.
So I think it's interesting to see the type of work that GCHQ employees have to do every day.
It looks really fun to work with this type of stuff, and it doesn't look as boring as some other jobs could be.
Think differently, stick with it, and what seems like mission impossible can become mission accomplished.
Barry Humphries has been remembered as a gifted entertainer and a loving friend at a state memorial at the Sydney Opera House. He died of complications from hip surgery earlier this year. He became famous for his portrayal of characters such as Dame Edna Everage and Sir Les Patterson. At today's ceremony, his profound influence was celebrated. The ABC's David Sparks has more.
A ceremony to celebrate one of the great figures of Australian culture. Friends, family and dignitaries were there, and his son Rupert remembered a childhood following Barry Humphries on his incredible journey.
Before each show started, I would sit in his dressing room as he applied makeup, wigs and fake teeth, and then watch him either step into a sequined frock or a totally disturbing fat suit that he wore for Les, with its huge appendage attached.
Barry Humphries became a comic legend, thanks mainly to his ability to bring eccentric characters to life. Chief among those, Dame Edna Everage, the hilarious, slightly egotistical housewife from Moonee Valley in suburban Melbourne.
She was my sidekick. She'd stand at my side and I would kick her.
Barry Humphries' longtime collaborator, Bruce Bereford, who directed the famous Barry Mackenzie films with him, told the audience of the first time he met the man in person in London.
I'd been given Barry's phone number by a Sydney friend, but hesitated for some time to make the call, as I felt he was probably fed up with hearing from unknown Australians. However, he was immediately friendly and suggested a meeting. This turned out to be somewhat surreal, as we found ourselves talking in the living room of his house, ankle deep in water, from a trendy water-filled sofa that had sprung a leak.
Bruce Beresford shared the serious side of his friend too, including Barry Humphries' battle with alcohol, which held back his career, sometimes in ridiculous fashion.
At one theatre, he knew he was first on stage after interval. He ran from a nearby pub and managed to reach the theatre just as the interval ended. He dashed into the wings and then onto the stage. The only problem was he was in the wrong theatre, in the wrong play.
And Bruce Beresford remembered another side of Barry Humphries, a fiercely loyal friend, especially when they were making that Bruce Mackenzie film back in the early 70s.
Now, I found out quite recently that Barry was under pressure at the time to find some more experienced director than me to handle the film. Barry resisted and insisted I direct. Barry Mackenzie was my first feature film. With Barry's support, my childhood dream, directing a movie, was a reality.
Barry Humphries' daughter, Tessa Humphries, recited a poem he wrote describing his childhood in pre-war Melbourne.
Back in the wattle 30s, before the world went dark,
They built this noble chalet on the crest of Wattle Park. The trammies on their days off came for Devonshire teas, and outside the kiddies seesawed with mercurochrome knees. A graveyard for old cable trams lay before us in the valley, where we played till creamy soda time and Dixies in the chalet.
Barry Humphries died in April, aged 89.
It is 26 after 6 and you're with RNZ National. In a story that sounds like a sequel to the Homeward Bound movie, a mischievous cat is back with its owners after travelling more than 300 kilometres from home. The woman who found the little stowaway calls the reunion a Christmas miracle. Fox 40's Ziggy Hill reports on the cat's journey and homecoming.
It all started about a week before Thanksgiving. I was looking out my window here and I saw a cat down in the pasture running through there.
Bates says it's not uncommon to see cats around her property as she leaves food out for the strays. The cat she saw turned out to be Bobby, a black and orange cat she and her husband had never seen before.
He went to get her and she came right to him. So then he brought her in the basement to me. I came downstairs and I looked at her and she was just so calm, just like the way she is right now.
After taking the cat in, Bates decides to name her Bobby because she has a bobtail. But before she claimed her as her own, she took to Facebook to try and find her rightful owner.
I posted it and I said about how this cat came about and that I named her Bobby and that she can go to her rightful owner. If whoever wants her, she can go back. Otherwise, she's going to be mine.
When a woman from New Jersey responded to that post.
I looked at it and the name wasn't familiar. I went to the Facebook profile and the woman was from New Jersey. And I thought, I don't know anybody from New Jersey. And I looked at all the connections and there was no connection to Green. So my husband and I kept thinking, something's fishy about this.
That meant Bobby would have had to travel over 200 miles from home to end up at the Bates residence.
I finally said to my husband, I said, I think we need to call this woman. So we called her and I said to her, how is it possible we have your cat?
Turns out Bobby accidentally stowed away on a trailer hauling hay bales from New Jersey to a company just 7 miles away.
We both were shocked. And, now they're coming on their way up and they're going to take her back. And it's going to be kind of hard to lose her because I kind of think she's sort of special.
After a long trip from New Jersey, the family had a sweet reunion with their long-lost cat.
Come on in.
Oh, my God. Bobby! What happened?
Where'd you go?
Bobby.
And coincidentally, the rightful owners had named the cat Bobby long before Debbie Bates had. She says the whole ordeal is a special thing to be a part of.
What a perfect time of the year for Christmas time to actually feel like I was part of, I think, a Christmas miracle. Because to these people, I'm sure they're going to be so happy to get their cat back. And I just think I think it has God written all over it.
How cute that they both named the cat Bobby. Bizarre. Thank you for all your book recommendations if you're looking for a good read. There's a few in. The Axeman's Carnival, Demon Copperhead, that's set in the southern Appalachian Mountains apparently. The Lincoln Highway, Tall Bones by Anna Bailey is another recommendation. Tampa, a great read, says someone else. How Big Things Get Done, yet another of your recommendations. Someone's asking what the picture book was I was talking about. Epic runs of the world. So long runs, short runs, trail runs, all around the world, different locations, different exotic locations, something to aim for. And over the summer, I'm going to reread a child's book, Where the Red Fern Grows. Loved it as a kid. I want to see if it's still got the same impact. Don't forget, if you missed anything on the program, you can find Checkpoint on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Have a fantastic weekend. Checkpoint team will be back on Monday.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. I'm Todd Zahner. The inquest into the 51 deaths from the Christchurch terror attacks has finished after 7 weeks of evidence, and the coroner's findings are expected next year. Corrections is working out how to respond to a High Court ruling that it must consider how to move illegally transferred prisoners back to Wellington. Hungary has blocked a $90 billion package of European Union aid for Ukraine. German prosecutors say they've arrested 3 Hamas members who were preparing to attack Jewish targets. And Air New Zealand says most of its flights over the Christmas season are 90% full already. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather is at 7.
Tomorrow on Mapuna, we talk to Charlie Tawhio, the chair of the Ngaitarangi Settlement Trust. It's launched an urgent claim to the Waitangi Tribunal, saying the new government is violating Te Tiriti with its treaty principles bill and policies on Te Reo Māori. That's Mapuna tomorrow after the midday news on RNZ National.
29 minutes to 7. Kia ora, you're listening to Trending Now. And first on the programme, it's time for Focus on Politics.
Roll on the rollback. A host of Labour's policies were shown to the scrap heap this week as the new coalition starts passing laws at pace.
This government is looking like the most backward, regressive, divisive that we have ever seen as a country.
The adults are back in charge and New Zealanders say to the last lot, good riddance.
Kia ora, ko Craig McCulloch aho, and e te pūrongo tōranga pū mō tēnei wiki. Welcome to Focus on Politics. I'm Craig McCulloch. The week began with a bang. Winston Peters in the hot seat, upgraded to acting Prime Minister as Christopher Luxon jetted to Australia to see his daughter graduate. The New Zealand First Leader is familiar with the role, having been Deputy PM twice before, and he clearly relished his return.
Words matter, Mr Robinson, not just gobbledygook.
Opposition MPs tried to trip up Mr Peters with a range of strategies, some more successful than others. For one, they tested his basic knowledge.
Can he tell the House what the minimum wage is today?
233? 2270? 2270? Am I right? Yeah, no, I didn't ask him. No, I was telling him.
MPs also quizzed Mr Peters on his party's previous positions, many of which have now flipped since joining the new coalition. He was reminded he once defended the oil and gas ban and the Reserve Bank's dual mandate, both of which are now being reversed.
I'm certain that members and those in the gallery and those who are watching on TV are going to enjoy today's conversation because they're hearing so many wise words being repeated back to them, in this case by the opposition, with respect to National Party members. But we have to move on, and the point is this. No.
But the opposition refused to move on. Labour's leader Chris Hipkins even called back to comments made by Mr Peters' coalition partner, foe-turned-friend David Seymour.
Does the Prime Minister or the Acting Prime Minister agree with David Seymour that, quote, you can't trust Winston Peters and a lot of things will be much, much harder than they otherwise would, and that Winston Peters is, quote, just a muppet? The problem is he can't work with anyone. The good news is he's going down in flames. He's yesterday's man. And if not, why not?
Because even politically, as the good book says, nobody's beyond redemption.
None of it seemed to rattle Mr Peters, who barrelled on, at once proving how he will be a provocation to both the opposition and his coalition partners.
We acknowledge that.